What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another Kansas City Chiefs post-game show on my channel. My name is Josh Fann of ShowMeFootball.com, and today I am joined by Michael Darcy from KC Sports Report. As always, we're here to break down this Kansas City Chiefs 17-9 victory over the Jacksonville Jaguars in Week 2 of the 2023 NFL season. Michael, first of all, how are you doing today after that?
I'm doing good. I still feel a little bit sick, but watching that game didn't make me feel better. But a win's a win.
Yeah, and I just want to shout this out real quick. College football related, rocking my Missouri shirt today since we defeated the Kansas State Wildcats yesterday. MIZ. Michael, I know you're a KU fan, but we can always enjoy a nice K-State loss in football, right?
Yeah, I'll always take that. And I think both of our teams are 3-0 right now, so it's a great time to
Yep.
be a college football fan and not a K-State fan. It's always a good time to not be a K-State fan, but
Yeah.
especially now.
For sure, yeah, no, that win had me hyped. Like, even if the Chiefs lost, you could not take that away from me. That was an awesome win for us. But back to Kansas City Chiefs, and luckily they were able to win today, and we have some positive stuff to talk about. But Michael, I know you can't be around for long, but I wanted to get your thoughts on some of the biggest things that happened today. So before I ask you anything more specific, I just got to know initial thoughts, as always. What are your initial thoughts after that game?
It is still very evident that this offense is not clicking in week 2 of the regular season. I thought
Yeah.
that, okay, week 1 was just kind of a fluke, that they'll get better in week 2. And I'm not coming away from this game feeling like the wide receivers were the problem, more the offensive play calling. The Chiefs did not run the ball in the first half whatsoever. And the very first play of the second half, Isaiah Pacheco goes off for 31 yards. They go on to score a touchdown on that very same drive. It's crazy that when the Chiefs have a balanced offensive attack, they're better offensively. So the offensive miscues, I think, is more of a play calling problem. We saw later on in the game on 4th and 1, they went for it with Pacheco. Instead of doing anything fancy, they got the
Yeah.
4th and 1 by just doing the bare minimum, and it worked. So I think that the Chiefs started to learn on, later in the game that, okay, simplify this offensive attack and make it more balanced, and it will be better. But in the first half, this offense was awful. Somehow, some way, the Chiefs went into the half winning 7-6. I don't even know how that's possible. But to kind of answer your question, I think the biggest positive, the overall positive, is this Kansas City Chiefs defense. Chris Jones, his first
Yeah.
game back, he had a sack. He was forcing all kinds of pressure. What he was able to do just, on the football field, it allowed guys like George Karlaftis to have 1.5 sacks and Felix to get to the quarterback. So Chris Jones' presence cannot be understated and how important he is to this team. We've been saying this all offseason long, Josh. We've been on this train all offseason long. But I don't think Chiefs fans really realize how good this defense is from a personnel perspective. But also, you just held an NFL team scoreless. They could not get in the red zone or get in the end zone. Holding them to field goals is something that I will take every single time because your defense is why you won this game today.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to start with the defense because I want to get most of your thoughts on them. Uh,
Yes.
and while you're here, that was probably arguably the best defensive performance I've ever seen from the Chiefs in the Patrick Mahomes era. They shut the Jaguars down in the red zone. They could not get in the end zone, as you stated. And I just got to say, man, games like today are exactly why you pay Chris Jones. Chris Jones was an absolute monster in his first game back. Uh, he had a sack today, or he had 2 sacks because after Andy Reid challenged the last play where Trevor Lawrence threw it backwards, I think Chris Jones is credited with the sack for that.
Oh,
Um,
really?
I believe so. I'd have to double check on that. But I mean, that clutch plays like that are why you pay Chris Jones. Chris Jones is the difference maker on this defense. We were saying it all along. Chiefs fans are, I'm sure the 180 has already started on Chris Jones. They're, all the Chiefs fans that were mocking him for sitting out and all that stuff, I'm sure they're happy to have him back now. Chris Jones just makes this pass rush go, because even earlier in the game, I remember Karlaftis had an early sack on Trevor Lawrence, but it was because Chris Jones was rushing from the edge, and he was the first pass rusher to get to Trevor Lawrence, and he forced Trevor Lawrence to step up into the arms of George Karlaftis. Chris Jones was rushing from the edge a lot today, and he looked really good doing it. Just an awesome game from him. Awesome game from the pass rush. Really, I thought they applied a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
And I thought the secondary did relatively well too. Sure, Calvin Ridley had a few plays here and there. There was also a play that I wasn't happy with from the Jaguars' point of view, where I think it was Evan Engram just straight up tackled Brian Cook on a pass from Trevor Lawrence, and it should have been an OPI. That drive should have ended
Yeah.
a lot earlier than it did, but the Jaguars got away with one there, and Brian Cook got shaken up from that too. I hope he's all right. It seemed like he was. He got up off the field under his own power. I'm super happy with this defense, man. Like I'm really proud of them what they did today. Hold the Jaguars to only 6 points. They were 0 of 7 in the red zone. I mean, just absolutely locked down today.
That's the kind of stuff that we've been dreaming about, Josh. And it's kind of crazy how for the longest time we're like, just give Mahomes a top 10 defense and they'll be so good. And now the offense sucks. But I think that we'll
Yeah.
get to a point where the offense is better. Patrick Mahomes talked in the post-game interview with, I can't remember who the sideline reporter was, James Washburn or something like that. He was talking about how the miscues were on him. They're not all on him. The offensive line forgetting how to play the position, that kind of hurts too. The sloppiness and penalties, that's a big problem because I noticed in the first half that this team was really undisciplined. You had fumbles all over the place. Richie James, Justin Watson. I mean, it was everybody. And, the offensive line doing what they do worst, and that is, giving up so many yards to penalties. But I don't think I've ever seen an offensive lineman get pulled mid-series like they did to Jawan Taylor at one point in time, which for a guy that's getting paid more than anybody else on your offensive line, kind of concerning. I think he'll shake it off, but rough day for the Chiefs in terms of penalties and the offensive line specifically.
Yeah, I'll get to the offensive line in a second. As far as penalties in general, the Chiefs had over 100 yards in penalties today, if you include the ones that also got declined by the Jaguars. There were a few that they declined, which brought it just under 100 yards, but it was basically 100 yards in penalties. That's got to get cleaned up. I thought some of them were kind of meh. Like there was pass interference on Snead that they called that I thought was kind of janky, but that'll happen. The refs were pretty one-sided today, though. I'll say that. I mean, some of the penalties were legit. Like I have to admit that, but uh, I'll talk about the offensive line in a second. A few more things about this defense. They held the Jaguars to 271 yards of total offense, 197 passing yards, 74 rushing yards. They only averaged 4.2 yards per play, 3 of 12 on third down, and they were 0 of 2 on fourth down. Just a magnificent day. Can't say it enough. And this was a Jaguars team that we were kind of concerned about their skill position and how the Chiefs were going to defend that. They got guys all across the board: Christian Kirk, Calvin Ridley, who made a lot of nice catches today. He also got rung by the field goal post. That was kind of funny. Glad he's okay, but he got knocked over by that thing. You got to watch out. But yeah, man. I mean, this is a good Jaguars offense. We think it's going to be pretty good this year. And just looking at this win in general, like I know it wasn't pretty, but this is a team that made the playoffs last year, made it to the divisional round. A lot of people feel like they had a really good offseason. This is year 2 with Doug Peterson. So a lot of people consider this a playoff team, and you just kind of, I know the scoreboard doesn't really show it, and I know the offense kind of sputtered a lot in the first half, but they really dominated them.
Yeah, and that's why I think that to say that it wasn't a pretty win isn't entirely true, because for the defense, it was a magnificent win. This is, like you said, maybe the best defensive showing that we've seen with Patrick Mahomes as the quarterback of the Kansas City Chiefs. So that by itself is a major victory. There's some offensive stuff to clean up, but guys, in the past, all we've been concerned about was, can the defense do enough? Can they do enough? Can they just get off the field and give the ball back to the offense? This year, we are seeing great strides in just 2 weeks. 2 weeks into the season. What is this team going to be like at the mid-season point? they could be a top 3 unit. That is how good this defense could be. And I really do think it's only a matter of time before the offense figures it out. And pairing it with this defense, goodness gracious, man.
Yeah, I'm really excited. If we can just get the offense right, man, paired with this defense, like I'm really excited about what the Chiefs can do this year as a team. I love the ceiling that this Chiefs defense has, especially with Chris Jones being back in the mix. I really feel like you can't understate the presence of Chris Jones being back there today. I mean, 4 sacks on the Jaguars. He was a part of pretty much all of them. He was involved in some way, creating pressure, opening things up for other guys, even when he wasn't the one bringing Trevor Lawrence down. This team did a really nice job getting off the field on 3rd down. You can't really ask for much better from them. And honestly, the score would even be, sorry, can't talk. It would be even more lopsided if the Chiefs didn't turn the ball over so much on
Yeah.
offense.
Yeah, you gave them, I think a couple of their field goals resulted from Chiefs turnovers. I
Yeah.
think that's the case. So that doesn't happen. Chiefs may not even give up any field goals to begin with. So I definitely think that what we're
Yeah.
seeing right now from the defense is a great sign. And as long as they can keep this up, we're gonna have a chance to contend again for a Super Bowl. Like as long as you have this defense, I mean, we're banking on Patrick Mahomes and the offense figuring it out, but this defense is doing everything that you could ask for. They're getting to the quarterback. Their linebackers are great in coverage. Leo Chenal, I want to give a shout out to him. He's been a dog this season, and I honestly think this is not a topic for this video, but Chenal might be the guy that they're looking to over a Drew Tranquill because he got a lot of snaps early on in this game, and he looked comfortable. But the secondary,
He's
I also thought looked really
he
good.
Snell has been noticeable in the run game too, like coming up and sticking his head in there, making plays in the run game.
And that's a great sign.
Yeah, and I gotta say too, like I know it's early in 2023, and we haven't seen a lot yet from any of these teams, but the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Detroit Lions were 2 of the more high-powered offenses from last year. And in back-to-back weeks, the Chiefs defense has made them look average at best.
Yeah.
They've allowed a combined 23 points in 2 weeks against the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions were a fringe playoff team last year, and the Jaguars were a playoff team last year. And the Chiefs defense just kind of took care of business against both of them, which I mean, again, like really gives me confidence in what this team can do this year.
Yeah, and I think that we were so worried about their lack of ability to get to the quarterback, kind of even with Chris Jones back. We were wondering, oh, do they have enough? Because you're banking
Yeah.
on so many young guys like Karlaftis and Felix. But if this is what the pass rush is going to look like without Charles Omenihu, and when you add
Yeah.
him back, goodness gracious, dude, this could be very scary.
Yeah. Man, Charles Ameni, he's still not even in the mix yet. And like
Nope.
we look really good.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying, man. You're only going to add skill to this pass rush once he comes back. He's out for a good chunk of the season, but once he comes back, hopefully there's no injuries, but you're just going to add him on top of, what you've already got. And right now, him being out, it allows guys like Felix and Karlaftis to get a lot more snaps. And Karlaftis has looked really good for the past, 9, 10 games dating back to last year. He's kind of carrying that over into 2023. And this pass rush is much better than I anticipated it being.
Yeah, so far that has been the case. Even against the Lions, they only recorded 1 sack, but I really liked what I saw from the defensive ends. Felix Uzama in particular looked really good for a rookie. He's been playing a lot of snaps too, and I really there was a point before the season, like you mentioned, where it's like they might still need to add a veteran. They might benefit from like bringing back Carlos Dunlap or something like that, and honestly, I'd be okay if they didn't do that at this point. And again, Charles Menahue's he's going to be on this team after week 6, so I feel like that is your veteran addition right there.
Yeah, the Chiefs were right, and I was wrong. We have the pieces at pass rush. It's just going to be letting them go out and do their job, and they have done their job this season. And the pass rush is such a good indicator that, well, I guess not an indicator, but the pass rush being good is easier on your secondary and also easier on your linebackers because as long as you're forcing pressure, it's going to make it so whatever quarterback you're facing is going to have to get that ball out quick. And so your DBs don't have to stick to these guys as long, because there was a couple times today where I was like, okay, Calvin Ridley might break one off here. But since the Chiefs were getting to Trevor Lawrence so quickly, they just didn't have the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Trevor Lawrence was harassed quite a bit today. And even on the plays where he wasn't, I felt like the secondary held up pretty well.
Yeah.
Again, Calvin Ridley, Christian Kirk, they had some plays here and there, but they didn't kill you, really.
No, there was a lot of people on Twitter that were like, "Oh, I can't believe L'Jarius Sneed did that," or "What, he looks terrible." And I was like, "I don't think he looks that bad." Like, there was a couple
Yeah,
times where Calvin Ridley just got his. He's a great wide receiver.
I see some of the same discourse on like Justin Reed. Like, oh, what does Justin Reed do well? I really don't think Justin Reed is as bad as a lot of Chiefs fans think he is.
No.
He's a good tackler. Like, you got to give him that too. Like, he he will lay the boom. There was even a play. I think it was a play to Christian Kirk, maybe somebody else, where Justin Reed flew in looking for a big hit, and the receiver ended up uh, dropping it, or they got their hands on the ball and it went in the air. And if Justin Reed was actually uh, a little more laid back on the tackle, he could have maybe intercepted it. But I thought he played okay today. He also got a pass interference call that I thought was a little eh. I mean, it is what it is, but I don't think there's anyone you can point to in the secondary and be like, oh, they had a bad day today. I think everyone did all right. Everyone did their part. I want to
When
pull up
you
this
allow
comment
9
from HF.
points,
Yeah,
no one had a
right.
bad game.
Right. And I want to pull up this comment from HFA Recon. He says, we got to find a way to keep Jones after the season based on what we have seen today. And I mean, I agree. Like I said as soon as we started this thing, this is why you pay Chris Jones. Like the Chiefs have got to find a way to keep Chris Jones long term. I know Adam Schefter put out some report this morning though saying that the Chiefs basically wouldn't be able to tag Chris Jones because of cap concerns.
Hmm.
That is not true because yes, right now they have some cap issues, but if they're extending Chris Jones and giving him a new deal, they would be able to still take whatever money he's making. Like if they franchise tag him, okay, yes, it's going to be a lot of money, but there's other moves they can make that would allow them to franchise tag Chris Jones and then come to a new deal that would allow them to spread out the money from that franchise tag. And the cap's only going to go up. We haven't even gotten the new cap number yet for next offseason. So I really don't understand where that's coming from with Adam Schefter. But yeah, man, I agree. Like Chris Jones needs to be on this team. A lot of Chiefs fans are saying we don't need him for 2023. Yes, we do. Today showed you why. Because games like this where the offense is sputtering, you need the defense to come up clutch, and Chris Jones always seems to come up clutch for this defense. AFC Championship game last year. This wasn't quite that, but you could draw parallels to where the offense really just wasn't doing much, and the defense, they were the ones being asked to step up. And Chris Jones was getting all those sacks on Joe Burrow, and he won that game with that last sack on Joe Burrow. Chris Jones kind of won that game with that last sack or that last knockdown on Trevor Lawrence, and then he threw the backwards pass. I mean, the game was over pretty much after that, regardless of the field goal that they hit. Chiefs Live says Karlaftis and Jones were amazing. I agree. And then Mateo says offense was out of it, and I'll go ahead and transition to the offense there. The offense, man, here's the thing: Patrick Mahomes, despite a not so great day, 29 of 41 for 305 yards and 2 touchdowns. Had a bad interception. That kind of looked like a desperation ball from him early on, just kind of a frustrated, like nothing is happening, nobody's getting open, whatever. And then he just chucked it downfield to Justin Watson, I believe it was. That was just a bad decision from Mahomes, but he was okay. The Chiefs threw the ball a little more than I wanted them to. You mentioned it, the run game. Run game is a little frustrating. Isaiah Pacheco ended up with 12 carries for 70 yards. Most of his yards came from that one huge carry, though, to begin the second half. And outside of that, it wasn't great. They also didn't really try it that much either, though. And the run plays that they do try, it's some outside zone with like Clyde Edwards-Helaire. You got to stop doing that. Stop running outside zone with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He's too slow to hit the hole. And really, all these, like even if you run outside zone with Pacheco, like this offensive line, they're not as great of movers as past Chiefs offensive lines So you can't do these slow developing run plays. You got to run power. Like you got to jam the ball down the Jaguars' throats by running power and running Pacheco behind your best interior three in the league and all those. I mean, you mentioned the fourth and short play. Finally, they
Mhm.
don't overcomplicate it and they just hand it off to Pacheco and they say, run behind our offensive line, run behind Joe Tooney, Creed Humphrey, and Trey Smith, and you'll get the first down. That's exactly what happened. I mean, they gained more than a first down or more than a yard. Like it works when you keep it simple like that. I mean, everyone else in the league is able to do it. I watched Thursday night football between the Vikings and Eagles, and they did the tush push play with Jalen Hurts all night. It works every single time. There's no need to overcomplicate this.
Yeah, I just that was good to see, but the lack of running the ball, it's just like, Andy, I'm the biggest advocate of throwing the football that you could probably find. But the
Yeah.
problem is when you run the ball 2 times out of your first 15 plays, you're doing something wrong. And the Chiefs did that in the first half. They were just so predictable. And that's why, like, I'm not coming out of this game, or I didn't even come out of the first half thinking these Chiefs wide receivers can't do anything. When, man, they're getting run to death. You're running the same stuff over and over and over again and expecting a different result. You've got to mix it up on offense. And Andy Reid did a terrible job of that in the first half. And that's why you scored a touchdown at the end of the first half. You couldn't get anything going on offense because they were trying to go for the deep stuff. That Mahomes throw to Watson, they got intercepted. It was a desperation throw, but it was also probably a desperation chuck way downfield just to try to make something out of nothing. But you got to take the small stuff. That quick striking pass game, that's where the Chiefs have found a lot of success. They did that in the second half, and it resulted in more points. But I definitely think that the offensive attack in the first half was just way too predictable, and that's why they weren't able to do anything. So, Andy, if you're going to create an offensive game plan, you got to run the ball a little bit, just a little bit. And you're not going to hear me say that a lot, but you can't run the ball like 3 times in the first half and be like, "Why are we having any success?"
Issues with the offense are incredibly frustrating because they're kind of all across the board. The receivers still aren't great. Kelsey, I want to mention Travis Kelsey real quick. I know he played today. He still looks hurt. He does not look like himself. He looks tired. He looks hurt. He was not the same Travis Kelsey today that we're used to.
He looks 34 years old, too. I hate to be that guy, but
Yeah. I think he had a handful of drops today too. I mean, some of them were tough plays, but usually balls that Kelsey would catch. So I think he's still hurt. I don't think he's 100% yet. So I'll cut him some slack there. But I don't want to like freak anyone out. But like, if the struggles with Kelsey continue, or if this is just kind of what he is this year, and I think he'll have his big games and stuff. Like I expect Kelsey to be better. But I'm just saying, like, if he wasn't, like, you got to have someone else to go to. This team, I'm not against adding a veteran. I said it in the Kingdom Crew earlier this week, the Kingdom Crew podcast. I'll say it again. Like this team would benefit from a veteran wide receiver of some sort, because these guys, they, I wouldn't say they got the job done today, but they struggled to get open once again. No one really stood out. I will give a shout out to Sky Moore though. I said in Kingdom Crew that
yeah.
I would love for him to just do something, like 50 yards and a touchdown, something like that. He had pretty close to that. 3 catches, 70 yards and touchdown. Like that's something from Sky Moore. He had that big catch that sealed the game. He had a touchdown catch in this game and another nice catch earlier on. I mean, Sky Moore looked all right. Like that was a good game from Sky Moore, but you still need more than that from your receivers as a whole. Other guys to catch a pass. Justin Watson had 3 catches for 62 yards. Justin Watson cannot be your best receiver all year. Noah Gray, 3 catches for 38 yards. Kadarius Toney, Andy Reid kind of made it a point to get him the ball early in the game. I believe he touched the ball like 3 times on one drive in the first quarter. He ended up with 5 catches for 35 yards. But then we didn't see too much of him after that. He did fumble in the second half. Luckily, the Chiefs were able to get it back, but hopefully Kadarius Toney gets it together because I still think he can be a contributing piece on this team. But he's got to hold on to the ball. Rashee Rice, 2 catches for 20 yards. The receivers were so-so, man. Like, kinda like they weren't as bad as last week, but, that was also a low bar to begin with.
Yeah, I think did Justin Ross even touch the field today?
He was out there on special teams, I remember that for sure. I
Okay,
don't know about
okay.
anything else.
Well, that would make sense why the Chiefs carried him as a seventh wide receiver, but it's also like, man, if you're not going to use him, why have him kind of thing? Because he's just taking up a spot where you could not acquire a veteran wide receiver if you need one. You can't have 8 wide receivers, guys. You're going to have to make some sacrifices at positions, or you could just cut Clyde small ass. That could also be an option that you could go for. So, quick little side note. I was watching the game at my place, and I'm kind of not really like one to cheer. I mean, I am, but like I'm more just like focused on the game. Don't really say much. I'm watching it by myself. The only time that I like made a noise today is when Clyde, I think, dropped a pass, or I saw him on the field and I was like, why is he out there? Like that was the only thing that I think I said. And not trying to get what was I even saying? Sorry, I got sidetracked from Clyde.
I mean, you were on the wide receivers and Justin Ross to begin with.
Yes. Why have Justin Ross as a seventh wide receiver if you're not going to use him? Because you're just taking up space for a veteran wide receiver. But getting back to today's performances, I thought Kadarius Toney looked really good in the short sample size we saw of him on that one series. He had that fumble later on in the game. They're saying that there was a lot of elements to deal with. I mean, obviously the heat and humidity was one of them. It was like 120 on the field in Jacksonville. But I also heard that the balls were like moist from like residue. So I don't know how much that maybe had to do with the fumbling, because there was a lot of fumbling going on. Did we have 3 fumbles now that I think about it?
Yeah, Justin Watson had one, Tony had one,
And Richie James had
Richie
one.
Richie James, his more looked like the sun just got in his eyes and he just didn't see the ball because it hit him right in the face mask. So that's how I would explain that one. But Richie James was the other one, I think. And that was bad too. And Richie James, he had some fumbling problems on special teams back with the Giants and 49ers. I remember reading some stuff about him in the offseason. They specifically talked about his fumbles on special teams. So I hope that doesn't continue to be an issue here. But also, uh, Dave Toeb's units have kind of done this over the years, and just turnovers in general, man. Like Andy Reid coach teams over the past few years, like the turnovers have been kind of out of control. Last year, we went on and on about how their turnover margin or their turnover differential is one of the worst in the league before the playoffs. I want to say they had the worst turnover differential for a Super Bowl winning team in like a really long time. And then the year before that, 2021, they had more turnovers than any other team Andy Reid has ever coached. They were really bad that year. So I don't know what's going on, man, but turnovers got to get cleaned up. I'll give this team the benefit of the doubt because, again, the turnovers were really bad the last few years, and they made the AFC Championship game and won a Super Bowl. So this team has shown that they can typically clean that up by the time the postseason rolls around, but I would like to see it cleaned up so we can win these games a little bit easier and make it easier on our defense. That's for sure.
Yeah, listen, there's no such thing as a stress-free Chiefs game. It'll never be like that. With Andy Reid as the coach, something's going to happen. But I think that what we're just trying to see is a more fluent game from both sides, because it can never be 2 things being great at one time.
Yeah.
And the defense has been so great to start the season, and the offense hasn't been. I can't wait till our offense is dropping 40 bombs week in, week out, and our defense can't stop anything, because that's just seemingly how it happens in Kansas City. But I think that all Chiefs fans want to see is just, a clean game. Don't have the self-inflicted wounds of the turnovers, because if, we didn't have 3 turnovers on fumbles, I don't know if we'd really be coming in here being that stressed out about the wide receiver core, because we also would probably have more than 17 points if we didn't turn the ball over 3 times.
Yeah. Turnovers were an issue. Offensive line is an
Yeah.
absolute mess. They were the main culprit for all the penalties today for the Kansas City Chiefs. And I know that the league sent out that email about the illegal alignment for offensive linemen like Jawan Taylor, and they were cracking down on Jawan Taylor today. He had 4 or 5 penalties
He
today,
had 5.
and Yeah, and then they took him out at one point. Now, that was a little overblown because as soon as they did that, every single football account on Twitter was like, "Oh, Juwan Taylor benched." And it's like he didn't get benched. The coaches just pulled him out for like 2 plays to talk to him, and then he was right back in there the next series. That's really all it was. Uh, Juwan Taylor, if you take away the penalties, and I know this sounds kind of funny, if you take away the penalties, he actually played okay. And I think he'll be fine, but he's got to learn to stop doing that thing. And I almost kind of feel bad for him because I actually saw a few videos breaking down the Jawan Taylor alignments and the false starts. If you look very closely, they're not false starts. The ball is Creed's arm is moving. The ball is being snapped as soon as Jawan Taylor moves. But of course, he's so quick with it that when you're looking at it, um, just on TV or if you're a ref on the sideline, you're going to think that he false started. So they're throwing that flag, and the league is just cracking down on that. And it sucks because it was something Jawan Taylor had always done. He did it back when he was in Jacksonville. Lane Johnson, the Eagles, did it all last season for them. Mitchell Schwartz did something similar for years when he was in Kansas City. He was always seemingly getting an early jump. It's just something that right tackles do. And now it's a problem when Jawan Taylor does it, and the announcers call him out on primetime last week, and now it's illegal, and Jawan Taylor can't do it anymore, I guess. And it kind of sucks because it kind of takes him out of his groove, something that he's been used to doing since he's been in the NFL.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with Jawan Taylor. I still don't like Donovan Smith. I'm gonna
Oh
keep it
my god, I,
100.
I was gonna get to Donovan Smith. Like
Yeah.
he had a holding penalty, a back-breaking holding penalty, very early on in the game too, and those are the plays that I'm talking about with Donovan Smith. Why I was not a huge fan of the signing. This is who he is. He already has 2 penalties this year. He's averaging 10 penalties per season since he's been in the league. He's a better scheme fit than Orlando Brown was, but it comes with back-breaking penalties. That's who Donovan Smith is. It's not going to change. That's who he's been for his career, and you just got to deal with it.
Yeah, and they're able to overcome it, but God forbid you're playing in an AFC championship game or a Super Bowl and his inability to, you know, block results in negating a big time play. Hopefully, knock on wood, that doesn't happen, but it's scary to think about. The offensive line, I think I saw a meme on Twitter. It was like they're fighting to see who's going to get the next penalty because it was all of them. Like they all struggled. Joe Tooney
Yeah,
had a penalty. Jawan, it looks the worst for Jawan because he had 5 and there was already national attention about him, which I think is stupid. If you know football, it's just a quick release, it's a quick break. So there was already attention on him, and it kind of just, escalated with everybody. And the offensive line is going to have to get better because you can't be doing that and expect to win against really good teams. Not that Jacksonville's not a really good team, but you got lucky your defense bailed you out. Your defense might not bail you out every week.
yeah, it's true. I mean, this team, their bread and butter has always been their offense, and while I think the defense could be really good this year, that doesn't mean I don't want to see what this team is known for kind of fade off into the background and this offense take a huge step back. And another thing that concerned me today, Michael, and I don't know if you noticed this, but in the past, when the Chiefs ever got into second and long, third and long, it just kind of seemed like no big deal. And they would somehow convert, keep the drive going. It happened all the time. Today kind of felt like the first time in a long time where if the Chiefs just got into jam on second or third down, I had like zero confidence that they were going to get the first.
Yeah, I kind of felt like that. But I also don't think that like losing Juju Smith-Schuster was really the only big loss to the wide receiver core. I think, unless I'm forgetting somebody, but
Yeah,
I
no,
don't
that's
I,
true.
I don't think losing Juju would result in that. But I think that they're not really in a groove yet, and Kelsey is getting older, and he definitely, you're right, he did not look right. I mean, I saw him walking like a week ago. He was walking with a limp, man. And so he's probably on all kinds of medication so he can play in this game, but he's just not 100%. He's probably at like 70%. And he toughed it out, but you kind of saw he dropped a touchdown. He, wasn't getting the separation that he usually does. Part of that might be age. Part of that might be just, Jacksonville solely committing to stopping Travis Kelsey. But I also think that, his health is definitely something that we should not, you know, underplay lightly. Like he's definitely still dealing with that knee injury.
Yeah, it definitely looked like it. It felt like many times today that the offense just once they got in a jam, once they got in an unfavorable down and distance situation, they rolled over. Seemed like that a lot. And the penalties did not help. And it seems like any time that they did actually convert one of those, there was another penalty on top of it that would bring it back even further. Nonetheless, they won. This is a good win over
Yeah.
a playoff caliber team in week 2. The Chiefs are 1-1. That's better than 0-2. And even though I wouldn't even say this is a bad Mahomes game, but it definitely wasn't a great one. And even in a subpar Mahomes game, you get 300 passing yards and 2 touchdowns.
He's the GOAT, man. He just does it on his birthday, too. He turned 29. So is he 28, 29? I think he's 29.
28. 28.
Gee, man, that's 28 years old, 2 Super Bowl rings, could potentially get a third this year. That's crazy. But you see other AFC quarterbacks. Josh Allen looked better today, but Joe Burrow really didn't. Joe Burrow did not look good today.
I'll get to some of the other games that went on today in a second because I want to talk about that. I got to say, though, this offense kind of looked like they were out celebrating Patrick Mahomes' birthday last night.
Yeah, no, they definitely they look like me, a little bit hungover, a little bit sick. Yeah, I think they either watched that MU K State game or the KU Nevada game.
Oh gosh, yeah. Dude, I was watching that KU Nevada game last night, and I'm like, man, and I'm in Mountain Time, so I'm an hour behind even like you, and it's already like midnight, and this game is still going on. It's crazy.
The game didn't end until 12:30. I was like, dude, it's way too late to be watching this game right now.
Yeah, but real quick, because you mentioned Joe Burrow and Josh Allen. How about the Los Angeles Chargers and Justin Herbert losing it again today? When is Justin Herbert ever going to start getting blamed for the Chargers never doing anything and losing all like Justin Herbert has a losing record as the Chargers starter. Arguably one of the worst playoff chokes in NFL history. No playoff wins. Like when does Justin Herbert start getting blamed? Cuz all the time if you bring it up to Chargers fans, they'll say, "Oh, it's our defense. Like Justin Herbert can't do anything with this defense." I mean, they held the Titans to 24 points in regulation, and they had a drive where they were in the red zone and had a chance to win the game with a touchdown, and they just couldn't pull it off. They lose in overtime. Like, what is going on with them? And then the Raiders got absolutely clobbered by the Bills, and I don't expect anything good from the Broncos. They're already 0-1. So even though the Chiefs are struggling right now, I do want to reiterate to Chiefs fans that I am not worried whatsoever that they're not gonna win this division.
No, and if anything, it kind of shows you that the AFC playoff picture that we're used to, where the Bills and the Bengals are in the mix to go to the Super Bowl, that might not be the case this year. The Bengals have not looked good. The Bills kind of fixed it today, but it might be kind of a surprise this year in the AFC, which is a good thing. But as long as the Chiefs can kind of just stay steady and remain on course, they'll be fine. This division's not going to go in any other way. If they were to lose this division, it'd be the Chiefs losing this division and not the Chargers winning the division. But even then, like as long as they do their job, the Chiefs might sweep the division this year because they're really bad. And we're not great right now on offense, but they're really bad.
Yeah, I was also shocked that Brandon Staley was not fired after that playoff game last year, and then he made it through that 0-2 to start the season. I would not be shocked now if Brandon Staley was the first NFL coach fired in 2023.
Yeah, I've never been a Staley guy. Not that's a topic for a different video, but he's definitely a little too aggressive. But I think as long as the Chiefs can get back on their winning ways, which they got their first dub of the season, they play the Bears next week, which hopefully should
I,
be a layup. You
well, I was
can
gonna go.
get back
Sorry, I was
on
gonna go.
top. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna go over their schedule just for the next few games. I mean, the Bears look terrible. That should be a win. The Jets no longer have Aaron Rodgers and Zach Wilson back there. I'm not scared of them. The Vikings are a lot worse than anybody thought to start this year. Then you get the Denver Broncos after that. Like, you should really be racking up wins in this stretch of the schedule.
Yeah, and hopefully the Chiefs got their they lost that game out of the way with the Lions.
Yeah.
Because usually the Chiefs have that one loss. It was the Colts last year, but I really hope that you can start compiling some wins here, and you can go into what's our next big time game? Not like
So that would be probably the Dolphins on November 5th.
that game's gonna be like 8 a.m. too, isn't it?
Yeah, that's they
Yeah.
play in Germany.
Yeah. Yeah. So that I would say that's probably our next game. Best case scenario, you go undefeated until that point. I
Yeah,
don't think it's that hard. Well, okay, it's definitely
that
that
should
hard,
be.
but
Yeah, well, I mean, there's no games that they can't win, uh, on their schedule. These are all games that like they should be favored heavily, really.
yeah.
Jets, Vikings, Broncos, Chargers, Broncos again, and then yeah, like there's no reason that they shouldn't be. What would that be? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7-1 heading into the Dolphins game. So
Sounds about right. They're usually around that point, around eight, around week 8 or 9. They probably have one loss, maybe two, but they're usually on a pretty good winning streak by the time that point in the season comes around.
yeah, obviously we're looking far ahead into the future.
Yes.
But we'll go ahead and wrap this one up. Just a quick little post game for y'all. Um, Chiefs win 17-9. It wasn't pretty, but they got the job done. It's a good win over playoff Jaguars team. This team has shown me enough times that even when they struggled, I'm not going to freak out. Like I've learned that over the years, and so I'm not too worried about them right now. Like the offense is not great today. Hopefully they get it together. I have faith that they will. Um, so yeah, man, I'm not too worried. I'm glad they won. We're 1-1, better than 0-2. So that's all I got, Michael. Anything else you wanted to add?
Only thing that matters is that a win is a win in the National Football League. And the Chiefs are no longer 0-1. They're 1-1. And they're going to try to get back on the winning streak against the Bears next week. I think that they will. And so now is the point in the season where we start to rack up these wins, but you got to start somewhere. And to watch the defense ball out against a pretty good offense last year of the Jacksonville Jaguars, it's a very encouraging sign. I shudder to think what they're going to do to Justin Fields next week, but we'll
Yeah.
get to that point. But a win's a win. Glad they got this game, and we're on to Chicago.
Yeah, I should also mention that that Bears game will be the Matt Nagy revenge game. So I'll
Yeah,
be interested to see what
yeah.
he pulls out for that one. But yeah, guys, we'll go ahead and wrap it up there. Got Michael's final thoughts, got my final thoughts. But one more thing, Michael, before we go, where can everyone find you?
You guys can find me on YouTube at KC Sports Report, Instagram KC_Sports Report, Twitter at KC Sports Report. The personal on both those social media platforms is at the Michael Darcy. Check out my stuff on Bleacher Report. It's on the Bleacher Report mobile app, but it's also on the YouTube. So just go to the YouTube channel and you can find everything from there.
There you guys have it, and that'll all be in the description. As for me, you're already here. Might as well subscribe, like, and share so more Chiefs fans can find this. You can check out my work on showmefootball.com and arrowheadaddict.com. We will see you all in the next one. Go Chiefs!